Doing another video here. I wish I had a YouTube channel that was encouraging and shared, awesome experiences of travel and the goodness in the world, and just the the greatness of it all. You know, that's the way it's supposed to be. But hopefully, out of the things that happen to my family, we can help others. Until at least my, you know, however I can protect my daughters, that they're protected. But the people who've done this should be held accountable. No matter, what happens to me as I age and as my health worsens, and even in my passing, people should be held accountable. That no veteran's family may ever experience this ever again. But this video is not dealing with that. It's dealing with um, my discovery of, like I always talk about that nest egg. That's just a good thing, a good rule to follow. Several times in my life, I had a nest egg put away, but being as I've never really had a lot of support or supporters. I guess apparently in my life I've been hated a lot. That's what I'm told. Um, but to have that nest egg, because if you're doing your disability or your VA claim, evidence counts, especially with the VA. And if your people at your VA are, anti-veteran types, anti-VA medical care, anti-veterans compensation, stuff like that. Um, like saving a few $100,000 at the VA is going to change the direction of the country. Because generally, I've seen yet the current cuts to be given to veterans. I'd like to see that yet. My 9-month long second time application, after waiting a year and a half for the first one that was just deleted somehow. Don't ask me how. Somehow it was deleted from the intake center server. So my second claim is still at 9 months. And last time I received notice, everything was denied or deferred. Everything. Well, no, I take that back. 2 things were denied. Everything else was deferred. But if you can get that nest egg or really, really budget and live conservatively while you're doing your case, just if you don't have access to very forensically trained and forensically adept attorneys, and you just have a general Medi-Mal, just somebody that they do Medi-Mal. They do Medi-Mal. That's their statement. Yeah, I do Medi-Mal. Or, disability practices. Um, and you want to protect yourself and make your case really strong. I've recently found out that some of these labs, now keep in mind, remember my statements about labs before. You got to be very careful. I got to be careful even what I say. But what I can say is what's public knowledge. Arup Labs sued the FDA. They don't believe the FDA has the authority to tell them about testing ranges that are, scientific in nature, and to tell them about how to perform their proprietary lab tests for blood chemistry. They sued the FDA over that, and saying that basically their tests, they have the right to make the ranges, they have the right to control how the tests are done. And then you have Quest. I can't speak for any other labs. These are the only 2 that I've dug into their background. Then you have Quest that had a lawsuit because somebody reported that they were double billing. I think it was the state of California. I could be wrong about that. But they're double billing a state for various blood testing, and the state was only asking for 1 sample and 1 test. But they were taking the sample and splitting it in two and doing testing twice. Which not only, if all that I know is they were testing twice. I don't know if they were cutting the sample in half or just doing the same test twice. I don't know the specifics. But anyway, they were billing this state 2 times. And the state was paying because evidently somebody's not looking at the books. And it was eventually found out, and I guess some kind of internal company auditor, lab auditor or something, reported it to law enforcement, and she was fired, and they blackballed her, and she filed suit over it. I don't know what happened with the case, but hopefully she won, some kind of a settlement because uh, they did everything they could to ruin her name. So, the chances of her working in a lab again were probably pretty slim. But so she reported this, and then also there was issues found with Quest of appropriate destruction of patient waste from samples, and protecting of patient data and selling of patient data to third parties. These are issues with Quest. And Quest uses many of the same blood chemistry ranges that ARUP does, ARUP Labs out of Utah. They use the same testing ranges. So find a lab that is not like them. Find a lab that has very few negative Google reviews, very few people that are saying negative stuff about it academically, and go with them. I've been digging into LabCorp. I don't know a lot about LabCorp, but I like their pricing for tests. You can walk in, and some of these tests, you don't need anything from a doctor. You just walk in. Some of it, you'd have to check on the site. But you walk in and pay yourself. A lot of stuff, you just walk in. And, if you're looking at autoimmune, well, you better have probably all of the relevant tests that I was looking at. And this is just baseline. This is the first test. It's probably good if you do some of these tests 2 or 3 times. It was around $1,300. And this is dealing with just autoimmune issues to kind of narrow down autoimmune illnesses. Now, again, like I said, this is just round 1. Some of these tests you want to do 2 or 3 times, and some of these tests, even if you get them all done, it still won't tell you specifically, like secondary illnesses. Like, let's say you have, for example, psoriatic arthritis, and then you have secondary Sjogren syndrome. And these tests, they, may not tell you specifically if you have it. You may have to add 1 or 2 more. Like with Sjogren's, you want to have possibly get a sample of sputum or take a biopsy of your salivary glands, and you want to take a sample of a toenail, and maybe also possibly of a tear duct. Those would also be helpful. They don't do, I don't think they do the biopsies, but they probably do the nail bed, because you got to make sure that you don't have some kind of nail fungus or a heart problem, because it's also Sjogren's is related to yellow nail syndrome. And so that is an example, I think, if I remember correctly. My mind's not declining, but not declining. I do have a speech impediment that's pretty apparent, but I usually catch it. But yeah, sometimes I'll forget things, which I never do, and sometimes I may forget a word, or I'll forget specifics about something I've read because my sleep apnea machine it's not working. Very little, and then add the diabetes. Yeah. So I'm hesitant to try melatonin, being I have a sleep disorder, but I need something besides eating a lot of turkey in my diet. I need something to help with to help me sleep. Anyway, but so you may need to do extra tests for secondary illnesses. Um, but still, this is stuff you could do yourself. Just budget out a couple $100 every paycheck, and get a bunch of tests, and they'll be in your possession because you paid. And that's one way that you take control of your disability claim. And since you're going to be going head to head with the VA, if it's autoimmune, I'm not sure what else that ARUP has, ARUP. I'm not sure what other contracts they have with the VA, but I know they hold most of them for autoimmune. So they're going to be doing your tests for autoimmune. They're going to be either locally processed in the RUP lab, or they're going to be FedEx to Salt Lake City. And so you're going to have to build a case not only against the VA arguing with what they're saying, or arguing, that you do qualify for such and such rating increase, or you do qualify for such and such rule regarding a disease because of this test. You're also going to be fighting against the RUP labs. And there's a reason why they got these contracts. This was when PACT Act, I've said in other videos, they got this this in 2020, which was the time that President Biden and the veterans community that rallied around the Democratic Party, they started that rallied around a lot of veterans too, not just the Democratic Party, but around a lot of veterans who are PACT Act veterans, because uh, President Biden uniquely um, is related to us because of his son, where he was forward deployed. And one of the bases he was at, it's everybody has heard about stories about the burn pits there. A lot of people have heard the stories. And so that being said, they're uniquely placed. And also, President Obama's, it would be a relative of his wife from the Robinson family. Um, I don't know exactly what conflict he was in, but I guess, well, actually, I don't want to say there's a direct relative. Just, I think, because similar state, he's from the same state, if I recall, and again, same family name, and there was something else I read too. I mean, albeit it's not direct evidence they're related, but I mean, Robinson's not exactly a super common name. I have ancestors that are Robinsons too, so maybe we're remotely related. But also, if my theory is right, this he was a very high level senior enlisted or senior officer. I can't remember. I think he was a senior officer. But anyway, he had PACT Act issues too, and he passed away. And his family spent it was 11 or 12 years fighting the VA. And it was an autoimmune related, toxic exposure related claim. And it's just disgusting. He passed away. And then the VA walks in at the end and says, "Oh, we're sorry for your loss. Thank you for your service. Here's a flag, and here's money for burial fees. And yeah, we've discussed survivor benefits. Yeah, we're gonna put in for a few $100s a month for surviving spouse." It's almost insulting, but yeah, they fought valiantly. It's just disgusting, that this that that family had to endure that, but they're not alone. But anyway, so this is a tool, as long as you have some kind of income, even disability. Keep in mind you can, maybe have your doctor do this if you're on Medicaid or Medicare. There may be limitations, but you don't own it. If you pay yourself, you own it. That's your test. You can order as many copies as you want. You can make as many photocopies as you want, and it's yours. And it helps you own your case. And it also reduces costs to your attorney costs. Because again, this is you taking a little bit of control. So I just wanted to put some stuff out there. Um, I looked at autoimmune, and it was around all of the relevant tests. It was around 1,300. Give or take a couple of extra tests that you can purchase as a bundle, but are not walk-in. So you're going to need a doctor to sign for those. They were around 300. So you're looking at under $2,000, to get comprehensive testing for autoimmune related things. And then if you wanted to get a lot of testing related to diabetes, it was around $500 to $700. Very comprehensive, telling you, exactly what kind of diabetes, exactly the progression it's going to go, specifics on, your things that are, more individualistic regarding your disease, um, your glucose reactivity, like basically what the future is going to look like. I mean, all kinds of stuff. That's $500 to $700 with LabCorp. Um, yeah, I've looked at other stuff. Then if you're going to look at anything, specific autoimmune markers or various blood related things, just to look at generally at your blood, different reactions, different genetic markers that your blood carries, related to your immune system. That was around 300 to 500. And let's see, what else did I look at? I looked at things related to, um, let's see, allergies. Oh yeah, they have a lot of allergy stuff in there. You wanted to get comprehensive allergy testing, probably around $1,000. Very comprehensive. I mean, they have so many different compounds. I would say that LabCorp has probably close to a couple hundred different things that they can look at for allergies, and they could get very specific too. And they could look at to look at all of the stuff related to celiac disease. It was about 100 to 200. Everything that you would think of related to celiac disease. Um, there's that word. Means somebody's unprepared to speak. I guess that was about all I really looked at. I looked at. I think that was the gist. Now, if you want to get into the cholesterol type stuff, circulatory type stuff, everything, from triglyceride reactivity to triglyceride, your burning of your triglycerides, your cholesterols, and the the markers to be, um, gosh, how do they put it? The various genetic factors in what your body does with cholesterol, how it reacts to it, how quickly or how fast, and what kind of tendencies you have towards cholesterol and towards ridding your body of it, and triglycerides, related to how your cholesterol and triglycerides react, and then how they affect your blood, and other things that that your fats and your cholesterols in your blood will affect. They're going to affect your red blood cells. Tests like that was probably that one. Very I wasn't very in depth. I think it was around maybe 300 to 500. But there's so many tests in there, a lot of stuff that would be useful in a comp claim. And if you're dealing with the VA, one of my criticisms with at least the Saginaw VA is they're never comprehensive in their testing. Rarely. I think in my a year and a half, 2 years with my provider, he's only been comprehensive twice. and even then, didn't carry the football all the way to the end zone. Like just barely crossed the line. So it's good if you know about what the labs can do. That way, if you are a veteran and you're dealing with the VA, and they don't really want to, they don't want to take that Hail Mary pass regarding your health and just take it all the way into the end zone, right to the goalpost. Then at least you can have an idea. Well, okay, I'm going to look at this test. I'm going to jump into Google and look into the National Institute of Health, their website, and research about my illness and different tests that are recommended and different tests that are often ignored that are also can be helpful. And I'm going to price them for myself. And I'm going to set a budget the next couple of months, for my disability check. And yeah, maybe I gotta have less coffee. Maybe I gotta go down from Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon and Tubi to just one or two a month. And then yeah, I can't buy all those movies that I wanted to. Just tighten your belt a little bit, and you can get those tests, and you'll get a better picture of your health. And then also gives you fuel. So when you walk into the VA and they say, "Oh, this is nothing," you say, "Actually, I have this test right here, and this test that I paid for myself." And from what I was reading out there, all of the MDs, DOs, PhDs, and NPs and PAs, they're saying that this and this actually means you're wrong. Take control of your disability case. Take control of your health. That way you're around to have time to spend with your family.